quite new to Penang. I remember I arrived a little while ago, and I flew in on a plane, and I landed, and the first thing someone said to me, the very, very first thing, came up to me, landed in the airport, just came along, and this guy came up to you and went, "Do you want a grab?" And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get assaulted. First thing in Penang, I'm going to get assaulted. I've just got here. In the UK, we have to wait until Sunday and go to church before we get that sort of thing. It's so weird. I mean, I've been here for a little while, but it made me wonder, why would you name your taxi service after such a violent thing, a Grab? So violent. Why would you name your taxi service a Grab? But obviously now I've been here a while, now I understand. Now I know why it's so named. Because they drive so aggressively. And every time I get into a Grab now, I have a little look, and most of the time you can see a little baseball bat in the front side door there, little baseball bat. And I think to myself, wow, that's really strange. And I've been in lots of taxis, lots and lots of these Grabs, and I've seen lots of baseball bats, but I've never seen one single person in Penang playing baseball. What does the guy in the sports shop think? He stole 400 baseball bats and 1 ball. He must think to himself, what kind of game are these guys playing? In most countries, you see taxis, they're usually yellow, so you can recognise them. You know they're available. In Penang, the taxis are red, and that's so you know they're dangerous. But it's really good. So when I came here, I got lots of advice. They said, listen, if you come to Penang, they're very big into sports. They love the sports here. They love football, they love badminton, and my favourite game they play here is how many people you can put on a bike. I like that game. But you can always tell in that game the favourite child, they get the helmet. Second favourite child, they get the medical card. They can fix them up later. But I went to the mainland. They said, don't worry about Grabs in the mainland, use a train, they're much better. Use the trains in the mainland. I went over, they weren't very good. Recently I went to Japan. In Japan, what happens is if the train's even 10 seconds late, the driver will go through the whole train and he will apologise to everybody in person for being 10 seconds late. The trains are so late here in Malaysia that if they did the same thing, the driver would have to go through the whole train and give everybody a blowjob. But it's weird, you see these people on the motorbikes here, and for me, I think they don't know if they're coming or going. And I know that because the jacket's on back to front. That should be the first part of the test. If you can't put a jacket on right, you can't drive a motorbike. Here's how it would go. Okay, put your jacket on. Now zip it up. If they're doing that, they've failed. But it reminded me that there's lots of these sort of accidents. Okay, so there's lots of texting on motorbikes, and that's very, very dangerous, texting on motorbikes. And it's so bad here, there's been so many accidents, they've had to change some of the initials. Okay, so they're texting while they're riding along, and when they crash, they've still got the phone in their hand, so if they could text that they're injured, that'd be really good. So they can use the abbreviations that you usually have. Okay, so before, they can keep the same abbreviations, so they crash, they can text ROFL. Okay? Now that used to mean rolling on the floor laughing, but now if they're in the crash and they text RFL, that means rolling on the floor with lacerations. If they text LOL, that means they've lost one leg. If they text BRB, that means they broke their ribs and back. But I also got some advice. They said, when you move here, I spoke to a local, he said, when you move into Penang, fantastic. He said, make sure, where you're going to live, he said, listen, the local guy said to me, he said, listen, make sure you live in a condo. I said, what do you mean live in a condo? He said, live in a condo, live in a condo. I said, what's a condo? He goes, it's just short for condominium. I said, no, that's it's condo. And he said, no, listen, take this advice seriously. He said, get your condo, okay, but make sure it's got 2 floors. Because we call that Durex. I took his advice because you've got to be safe. And I love it here in Penang. They celebrate everything. Okay, so Thai Busan is fantastic. You have people with needles through their mouths. You have wild chariot races, absolutely amazing. Chinese New Year, you have even bigger celebrations. You have fantastic firework displays, and it's a chariot race and everything. It's all amazing. And then at Christmas you have a fat man sitting down lying to kids. But you might have seen the signs outside. When I came in, they said, we're going to do a stand-up show with like a superhero based for all the adverts. And they said, so what kind of superhero would you like to be? And so I said, well, you can see the picture outside, I'm doing that thing with the mind, you know, like a mind trick. He said, yeah, someone who can read minds. He said, who's that going to be? I said, well, that's like Professor Xavier. Professor Xavier, he can read minds. He said, you can't have him. I said, why not? He said, because it's a stand-up show and he can't stand up. He said, pick another X-Man. I said, pick another X-Man. I said, okay, Caitlyn Jenner. And again, I like this, I mean, all this is about advice. I got advice, I was trying to start a new job. And I said to my friend, so I'm a bit nervous about this new job. What I'm doing is I'm doing speeches to groups of people, talks to groups of people. I said, what advice could you give me? He said, here's what you've got to do. Imagine them naked. Imagine them naked. You'll be in the power. Fantastic. So I said, that might not work, because I'm going to become a primary school teacher. And it's not the Jimmy Savile School of Arts. So, I also like trying to do these trendy things. So trendy at the minute is things like these online games. Online games are very popular. But my friends had tried them, so I tried them, but I was too good at it. I was far too good at it. I played that fortnight, but I completed it in 2 days. But I get a lot of advice. When I was in school, I got some advice. This was when I was really young. They said I went to the school counsellor to give me some job advice, and she said, listen, I've got some really good advice for you. Use this the rest of your life. They said, listen, life is like a box of chocolates. And when I know this, life is like a box of chocolates, it's from Forrest Gump. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And she went, no. Life is like a box of chocolates. No one likes the ginger ones. And I said, that's a bit rich. She had red hair herself. And I said, you can't say that, we're the same. I said, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. She said, people in stone houses shouldn't throw glass. She said, people in glass houses shouldn't throw orgies. But my friend, I like to give advice as well. My friend had this gym, and he was making this gym, and it wasn't doing very well. It wasn't making much money in this gym. So he said, what you need to do is relaunch it, give it a new name. So what's the name now? The name is Squares. I said, change the name from Squares to Circles. He said, I'm not going to make more money just by cutting corners. And I said, listen, is there any new, so he's at the gym, I said, is there any new, like, these crazies, these trends, these fitness trends that are going on? Because I like to try and get fit. He said, yeah, there's a new one come out, okay, it's really good, it's called the Jesus Fitness Plan. I said, what does that involve? He said, well, it's mainly cross-training. I tried it though, and I didn't nail it. Which reminds me, Jesus famously could turn water into wine. I can turn wine into water. Which technically makes me the Antichrist. Religion, the Bible often gives advice. So when God was there, Adam and Eve, and they had the Garden of Eden, God gave them 2 bits of advice. He said, listen, 2 bits of advice. 1, no sex. No sex. Okay? 2, don't eat those apples. He goes away. 9 months later, he comes back, and Eve is like that. All swollen up, belly's all up here. And God looks down to her and says, how many apples did you eat? And it always makes me wonder, if prayers work, if you're talking to God, because if you think about it, when do you most call out for God? When are you most passionately calling out for God? When are you shouting out His name the most passionately? That's right, during sex. That's when you shout out, God, oh God, oh God! What if He answered? You're there going, God, God, God! And God comes up and goes, yes, what is it? You seem to be, what? What are you doing? Why do you want me to see this? And that's the wrong hole. Boys. I went to the doctors again. The doctors often give you good advice. I went to the doctors and I said, can you give me a check? He said, yeah, I need a urine sample. And I said, are you taking the piss? He He said, what's the problem? I said, I've got two things really. I'm constantly lying, and I've also got my 12-inch penis. But celebrities are good at giving advice, they're always giving advice. So Martina Navratilova, the tennis player, she was in the news recently, and what she was complaining about is that transgender females, so people who used to be men, that they shouldn't be in the same competition as women, because it's not fair, because they can transition back. She said, that's what she said. And she said, I know this is happening, because only last week on the tennis court, someone shouted out, new balls, please. I mean, Taylor Swift, she's also been given advice about the, in America about the elections coming up, and she's very concerned that young women are not going to take part in politics anymore. So she's very worried. She wants more young girls to go to the polls to take part in the election. Oppositely, Donald Trump, he wants more young girls dancing around polls to give him an erection. Donald Trump famously has a wig. And in the UK we call a wig a rug, so Donald Trump wears a rug, and that's why so many world leaders walk all over him. Also in the UK, we have Brexit going on in a minute. It's a big mess. Lots of people giving advice about how they can fix Brexit, but it's an absolute mess. Britain are trying to get out of Europe, they're trying to exit Europe. It's the worst exit I've seen, the worst British exit I've seen since Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio were trying to get off the Titanic. But you get advice from movies as well. Famously, Obi-Wan Kenobi, he very famously gives advice. So at the start of the Star Wars movie, the original first one, he's there, Luke Skywalker, they're in a bar, some guy comes up, boom, chops Obi-Wan Kenobi, chops this guy's arm off, because he insults Luke Skywalker. He says, I don't like looking in your face. Obi-Wan comes in, chops his arm off, straight away. And about 2 minutes later in the movie, he sits Luke down and says, listen Luke, you need to use peace. You need to use the good side of the force. Don't give in to anger. You just chopped somebody's arm off 2 minutes ago. You hadn't even had a drink. He wasn't even talking to you. I thought you said use the force, not use force. It's really strange because in Star Wars, everybody loses an arm. Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, C-3PO, the Ice Bear, the guy in the bar, they all lose an arm. The only person who doesn't lose an arm is Han Solo. But my wife was very good at giving me advice, especially about in the bedroom. She likes to give advice. I remember when I met her, there was lots of sexual tension. I felt very sexual, she felt very tense. She said, listen, I need to try and talk dirty to me, that'll really turn me on. Talk dirty to me, that'll turn me on. So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. So I had to think, what's the dirtiest thing I could think of? I'll bring it in the bedroom. So one night we're getting romantic, we're getting amorous, we've got the candles, getting into bed, things start going. I think, right, this is the time. Okay, I'm going to do this very softly, very gently. I'm going to whisper this into me, the dirtiest thing I can think of, and this will really turn her on. And I said, I haven't put the bins on. She said, no, that's not right. She's not right. She said, what you need to do, try and tease me, that's how it'll work. Okay, so I did the same thing, romantic evening, we're in bed, we're getting down to it, softly, gently, romantically. I said to her, there's a Kit Kat in the fridge, but it's mine. I'm going to finish with a little story, a little bit of advice when I was young. Before I went out with a wife, I went out with this other girl. Now, my friends gave me some advice. They said, listen, she's very messy. The house is a very big mess. And she also lets these two white mice run around. She's a lovely girl, house is messy, two white mice run around, but she loves these mice. Please be very careful if anything happens to the mouse, she'll be very upset. So one night, I get up and go to the bathroom. I'm walking across, it's dark, squelch. I look down. There's a little pool of red blood. There's a little white stringy tail coming out. I thought to myself, oh God, this is it. This is it, I've ruined it. So I gently lift my foot up, I look down. But thankfully it wasn't a mouse. It was just a used tampon. And on that classy note, that is all from me. I'm off to get a grab and see if I can play some baseball. Thank you very much.